But one farmer says, seems to me there was a tea party in Boston that was illegal too.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold.
We shall seek to establish and maintain a dollar which will not change its purchasing and debt-paying power during the succeeding generation.
As anguished shrieks rose up from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Government credit and government currency are really one and the same thing. A reserve of gold and a small reserve of silver.
Why do central banks hold it?
Well, it's a form of reserves.
Why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Well, some people still think it's money.
Hey, good evening. Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. We're going to save the metal conversation, the metal news, for the end of the video. We've got some good information, some things I want to talk about, a couple of key points that are going to likely infuriate, upset, make a few of you cry even. I don't know. It's going to probably alienate me from a lot of those in the metal community that subscribe to a certain doctrine and belief. And that's okay, because I didn't start this channel to make friends. But don't skip ahead. You're going to want to stick around here for the doom and gloom first. There's some good information to discuss today. First off the bat, JP Morgan predicting GDP will completely crater, forecasts a staggering 40% second quarter drop. And I thought I was the pessimist. You know, for years, those of us out there in the fringe world of YouTube on channels like this discussing metals and the economy, we were the ones that would say crazy things like this. This is pretty extreme. And imagine this, a friend of mine who was discussing this very topic with me, this actual headline, he said, if JP Morgan's coming out and saying that, can you imagine how bad it's actually going to be? How bad it's really going to be? Because they're probably sugarcoating it just a tad. Regardless, even if they're not, the GDP cratering, to use that word alone, crater, and then forecasting a staggering 40% second quarter drop. There's some other headlines we're going to get to that come out along the lines of this. I need you to follow me with this infographic from the Department of Labor. This is initial jobless claims in the thousands, seasonally adjusted. Now watch as we go through time. Spikes there during the mid-'80s, but you'll see the main spike during the 2008 financial bubble. Watch that. It's the biggest one on this chart. You can see the numbers off in the left column. The years are on the very bottom. There's the big spike. That was the financial crisis we hit back in 08, 09, and 10. This is right now. And keep on climbing, keep on climbing. That's the initial jobless claims with just, a month and a half of the COVID. Parabolic, dwarfing anything we've seen similar. I mean, look at it. It's still going. It's still going. And there you have it. And that's just right now. Mind you, the economy is still going through, it's still unfolding. The dominoes are still tipping. We haven't even seen, I would argue that we have not seen light at the end of the tunnel. Perhaps with the Kung Fu flu, that's the excuse that they're using to kind of systematically control demolition, the entire world economy, so they can centralize power and centralize wealth. Yeah, that's coming to an end, the Wu-Tang flu. But as far as the economy is concerned, it has just begun. This is the incipient stage. They just struck the flint and the steel together and threw the first sparks into the tinder. It is only now smoldering. We have yet to see the conflagration, if you follow that analogy. Let's keep punching through these headlines and see how bleak some of these individuals see it. Italy's Conte warns of EU collapse ahead of crucial financial talks. This is another article and headline that I was aware of a couple days ago. I know I took a break for the holiday. Hope all of you had a blessed and wonderful Easter. Truly, my heart goes out to each and every one of you. I do hope you had a splendid day with your loved ones and contemplated the meaning of the holiday. But here you go. Italy's Conte warning EU collapse. You know, I think we would all applaud a collapse of the EU. I'm not a big fan. Not a fan at all. The EU could fail over the outbreak, warns Italy's Giuseppe Conte. Coronavirus is devastating the Italian economy. Europe could fall, Italy warns as the EU tries again for a rescue deal. We saw these headlines about a week ago, and they're continuing to come out. Some of the stories with more recent news regarding the same topic, but it's the IMF, and they gave some updates warning of the worst economic fallout since the Great Depression. And when one takes society into consideration, their skills, abilities, the demographic makeup, just the way modern man exists, the comforts that he's used to, I would argue that it's going to be far worse. Far, far worse than the Great Depression, just in people's ability to cope. You figure in the United States alone during the Great Depression, I forget the exact statistic, but I believe it was something like 70 or 80% of the nation was agrarian, very self-sufficient. Back then, people were different. People knew how to do a lot of things in order to be independent and to be self-sufficient and take care of one's needs. And today, if a sink is clogged, 90% of the people call the landlord or whoever they rent off of in their condominium or wherever to fix the plugged sink or whatever. The system will be completely overloaded with those dependent upon even the most basic services. People can't change their own tire. They have to go to an app and request someone to come help them change the tire. Back in the day, you remember the Depression era people. I don't know how many of you grew up around them. I had many elderly people in my life when I was younger that grew up through those types of eras, especially the Depression. And you remember them, the old man who would have just jars. Even my dad, he wasn't a Great Depression era person, but again, he came out of the generations right that did. They saved everything. The women back then, my grandmother, she canned everything in her garden. She jarred everything. She grew her own food, her own fruit, her own vegetables, and she canned them and jarred them. The men would keep coffee cans full of every screw, nail, washer, nut, and bolt that they ever came across. They didn't throw anything away. These are the people that would rinse and wash their tinfoil to reuse it. Okay? We live in a society today that just throws everything away, takes everything for granted, doesn't save anything, not even their own wealth or money, and just kind of exists to consume. They don't value much. And it's going to be difficult for them. It's going to be a hard road for those who are used to the comforts of the modern world the way they are now, if this thing truly unfolds the way it should. Oh, we saw this coming. You know you did. The impending car price collapse gripping the auto industry. Shut the plants down. No one's buying anything. No one's getting approved for anything. They're not going to be able to give cars away pretty soon. I'm telling you, back to what we just talked about. Back in the day, people paid off their vehicle and they drove it until the wheels fell off. They maintained it. They changed the oil, the fluids, the belts. They worked on it themselves even. Today, just like we talked about. They get a flat tire, they call someone. They need a belt change, they call someone. Nobody changes their oil anymore in most places. Now you've got lots full of vehicles that are completely overpriced in order to fund the union auto workers. Most of these companies, essentially they're almost nationalized. They've been bailed out by the government so many times in so many economic contractions. They're essentially government owned, you would think. And they're going to come begging again with their hat in hand, peddling and lobbying in Washington, begging on their knees. And of course the government, because they view them as vital as they are, is going to give them whatever they ask for, and you, the taxpayer, and you, the world, will pay for it in treasuries and in bonds and the Fed and so on and so forth. But until then, it'll collapse, it'll implode, and you'll have lots of unsold vehicles. You'll have incentives and low interest rates. They'll be begging to get rid of them. Nah, I don't want one. I don't need a $65,000 vehicle. It's not worth $30,000. As soon as you drive these vehicles off the lot, they depreciate. It's truly the dumbest financial decision a person can make. It is the worst financial decision a person can make when it comes to buying something as a vehicle, a brand new one. Let someone else take the hit. Buy a 2, 3, 4-year-old vehicle. I've never bought a vehicle off a lot in my life, and I never will. You will not see me. I don't care what level of wealth I ever was able to obtain. I would never walk onto a car lot and sign for a brand new that year issued vehicle. It's not going to happen. Even if I was a billionaire, I wouldn't do it. Out of principle. Let someone else take that hit, because as soon as that wheel rolls off the curb the first time and you leave that parking lot, it's worth less. So I don't want to. Again, 2-year-old vehicle is the way to go, or more. And then, maintain it as long as you can. And that's that. But again, you're going to have a lot of lots sitting there with vehicles that were waiting for people to get their 5 and 10-year loans on. And that's just not going to take place likely, because a lot of people, as we just saw, are going to be unemployed or underemployed with reduced hours. I haven't even got to the furlough part yet. I didn't even get those headlines up. I saw a thing yesterday or today. Disney furloughing 40,000 employees. Look up hospitals. Do that. Google hospitals furloughing employees all over the country right now. During the height of a medical crisis, we have hospitals furloughing major percentages of their staff. I saw several today. The amount of employees being furloughed was in the thousands from individual hospitals. And some were 600, some were 400, some were 1,000. Depends on the size of the hospital. But hospitals across the country are releasing and reducing staff, reducing wages and salaries for everybody across the board immediately. It's because nobody is there for elective surgeries. No one's getting knee replacements or hip replacements. If it's not emergent, they're not doing it. So that means they're not making that much money. People aren't going to their regular scheduled appointments, all because of this medical crisis that we're enduring. So now you have the healthcare industry suffering. Again, that's how widespread the financial impact of this situation is. It was not like this during 07 or 08. I mean, the healthcare industry wasn't directly impacted this way. I mean, this is essentially and truly destroying every single facet of they're carpet bombing the economy. Literally carpet bombing it. No holds barred. They don't care how much collateral damage takes place. They're flying that thing over and they're dropping everything on it. I mean, this economy is being ripped apart at the seams, every single corner, whether it's the automotive industry, the healthcare industry, the food industry, the restaurant bar industry. I mean, you name it, no one's allowed to go to work. The education industry, or that's an industry, the educational complex, that's shut down. No one's going to school. They've put a moratorium on student loans and calling in the payment for those and the interest on those. I'm probably going to swear it today. And meanwhile, all this is going on. You've got the debt. You saw the debt clock there. Here we are, we're at 24,236 billion, 368,364,000 something. I mean, the numbers are astronomical. And you got these same idiots, I'm going to say it, dipshits, just continuing to do the same old thing. And remember, we talked about this the other day. It took from the birth of this nation to 1981 to get to the first $1 trillion. We just did another trillion from 23 to 24 in just 159 days. It's unbelievable. And it's going to start doubling. Again, remember that. It's going to start doubling and doubling and doubling year on year. There will come a time where, again, by the end of this year, we'll probably be at 30 trillion. And then the next year, 50. The year after that, 70s. Eventually, it's going to be 100 trillion. 200 trillion. Eventually, there will come a time where you will see a quadrillion as the U.S. national debt. Every once in a while, we get someone in the comments that actually defends the national debt or says it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. Things will go on the way they are, and nothing will happen. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's just a number. Those idiots. I mean, God help them. Really, honestly, what do you do with people like that? I guess forget it. No use for it. We'll throw this up here. Again, this is the ratios that are on the debt clock. I don't know how accurate they really are. I honestly don't know. It's an interesting conversation piece for me. Even if it was half what the numbers are that they show, it's pretty significant. But the dollar to gold ratio now, 19,533 per ounce. The dollar to silver ratio, 2,356 per ounce. Yeah, big numbers, big numbers. A lot of money in print, not a lot of metal out there. Speaking of metals, where are we at today? Where did we close? Gold closed at $1774.70. It looks like up about $13.30, up 0.75%. This is in futures trading right now, so yeah, I believe the activity today was a little different than that. But anyway, it's up at $1774, so it's getting close to $1,800. Gold shooting over 7-year peaks. That's unbelievable. Silver still crippled at $15.87, up 33 cents, up 2%. We're going to talk about silver. A buddy of mine calls it super copper now. We nicknamed it super copper because it's just we're going to look at a silver chart. I'm going to piss some of you guys off on silver, and don't get mad. Okay, don't get all emotional. If you start investing and doing this stuff based on emotion, you're going to get wrecked. You're going to get wrecked. I'm not emotional about it. I don't care. I bought silver. I bought just the other day when it hit that low. I bought a little bit. I bought a tad. Not a lot. I don't like to overexpose on silver. And my whole plan with silver always is flip it when the ratio gets smaller. The only reason I bought silver right now is the only thing that silver has going for it is its gold-silver ratio. This whole 110 to 120 silver to gold ratio is the only strength silver has right now. And it's the only reason yours truly, Junius Maltby, bought any. I use silver as kind of like a little booster rocket to get me to moon gold, because that's where gold's going to the moon. I don't know where silver's going. It needs to learn how to walk, or they need to figure something out, but it's not going where gold is. I'm going to tell you that right now. And we're going to look at some more data on that. I know some people believe silver's this, super duper conspiracy metal that there's not a lot of it because it destroyed it all. And it's the rarest metal on the planet. It's more rare than rhodium or something. There's all kinds of theories about that, and I just don't buy it. I know it's a byproduct metal from a lot of mines. I've seen numbers for it being mined at anywhere from the all-inclusive cost per ounce sold, anywhere from $4 to $17, depending where it is. I know there's a huge industrial demand. I know it's got a lot of industrial applications, and that's great. That's splendid. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me, the industrial application. It does give it strength in those areas, but it's not gold. It's not monetized. It's not held. I don't know what it is about humans and their connection. And there's a huge component with gold, going back since the beginning of time. And there's with silver too. Again, I bought some. I like it. It's great. It's right there with gold when it comes to the human economy, going back 10,000 years. But for some reason, it's not held the same. It's not viewed the same. And it won't be. And we, the stacking community, aren't going to change that. It's just the way it is. Now let's take a look at some charts here. So I know a lot of you just got really upset, but that's okay. Hopefully you're still tuned in. If not, I lost like half my subscribers, half the silver people. That's okay. I still love you guys. This is Gold Comics going back all the way about 1985. Yeah, it's flat. It was also crippled for a long time. And again, it was only legal to own in the United States, and it was heavily manipulated, as well as silver. But again, only legal to own since 1974. So you cannot look beyond that. The government only had the stuff worth $35 an ounce for most of that century. Then it remonetized it to $42.50, and they've left it there pretty much ever since. The balance sheets of the Fed have expanded. The money supply has expanded. Again, we didn't hit our first trillion in debt till about 1981. Since then, a lot of things have happened. We had the flash crash in 87, the dot-com in 99. Of course, there's the 07-08 financial crisis that hit. And we saw gold really ramp up and react to the mass Fed printing and quantitative easing. Now you've got this significant multi-decade bull flag sitting here. Just a wonderful, beautiful chart. We know that gold has averaged 10.2% over the last 15 years with only 4 down years. Again, year-to-date change on it, 15.86%. The one-year change, 33.13%. 33%. Superb strength for gold there. And setting up essentially to explode to the $3,000 range. It's going to blow past 2,000. Personally, I think once it crests beyond the 2,000 mark, just like it did when it blew past 1,000, it never went back. It never touched 1,000 again. And I'll ask again, if you can hear me out there, internet, echo, echo, if you can hear me, where have all the gold bears gone? Those guys that claimed gold was going to retreat back to $500 or $700 an ounce, They are completely wrong. They should not have an opinion. How they're still writing articles or being interviewed anywhere is beyond me. These guys are complete buffoons. They don't know anything about the markets because they were making calls for gold to retreat. Even I saw calls down to 200-300. They thought it was going to go all the way back to the way it was back before Brown's down in 1999 when England made the dumbest move of any economy ever and dumped all of their gold to buy mortgage-backed securities from the United States. Think of that, for $260 an ounce. Well, people thought it was going to go back to that. Idiots. It never did. And it never went below 1,000, and it never will. It's not going back to 1,000. So those of you sitting around to wait to buy gold at 1,000 to 1,300 even, you're going to be waiting a long time, and you're likely never going to own any. You can see the chart. Look at it. Boom, it blew past 1,000, never went back. It tried to kiss it. People thought that that period in time from about 2011 to about 13 or 14, right around that low we saw in 2015, they thought it was going to dip below that. It never did. It never did. It maintained its strength. And we're going to look at India in a moment, so I need you to pay attention to, right about when you look at that chart, look around where it's about 11, it was about 1150. So around 2010 or 11, I think it was 2011, is when India bought 220 tons of gold. And they bought it about that 1100 range. A lot of central banks bought right where you see that peak is. So look from about 2008 and 9 all the way to about 2015, central banks were gobbling gold up during that entire phase. And that's what really pointed to the fact, look, if these guys, these giant titans of the finance world, the central banks, the controllers of everything, the puppet masters, if they're buying that much gold during those levels, they're not going to let it dip below that. And they also know something. They're doing it for a reason, because it's not going to go below that. They're not going to expose themselves that way. It really gave me the confidence that we weren't going to see gold drop to 1,000 ever again. Okay, that's gold. Now let's look at silver. For some reason, the chart doesn't go back as far. It only goes to about 2005. And then I realized, hey, that doesn't really matter because the price of silver didn't change that much, other than the Hunt brothers situation when they cornered the market and tried to spike silver's price. You know, the whole time I was growing up as a kid buying silver, it was $3, $4, $5 an ounce all the time. It fluctuated in pennies. Again, it was crippled. It was on crutches. It's what I could afford with my bubble gum money. You know, instead of buying baseball cards like most kids, I was buying silver eagles and silver quarters and dimes and whatnot. It was fun. You know, I was building up a little treasure chest. But there you go. Look at this chart. From 2005 to, you know, for a long time, 2009. It spiked a little bit. Remember that? We saw that take place. And then it crashed again right after, during the beginning part of the financial crisis. Right before coming up into it, it peaked up there again. And then it dropped quick after that. And then it really ramped up chasing gold. About 2011 peaked out. But you can see that was just a brief spike there. And then it collapsed again. Back down to, you know, just hovering in the teens. And recently it went below the teens, hitting the 11 range. Now again, I agree with you. Paper markets, the COMEX, it's broken. Price discovery is crippled. We don't really know the true value yet. Is silver worth more than $15.86 an ounce? I think so. I mean, heck, I just told you I bought some recently. How high is it going to go? I don't know. I don't know. It could reach the 100 range just because it's chasing gold and just because they destroyed the dollar that much. But it's viewed differently. It's treated differently. Silver is a different metal. It's not hoarded by the banks the same way. It's not invested culturally and across the globe the same way. It's not used to hedge the same way. And, you know, the proof's in the pudding. And we're going to look at supply here in a minute. I don't want to get into all the conspiracy theories about that, how much has been destroyed, how much exists. But look here. Year-to-date percentage change down 11.89%. 1 year percentage change up 2.32%. Completely different percentages. The chart looks different than gold. Its percentages are completely different from gold. And it's just not, in my opinion, it's not as strong. I've complained about silver for a long time. One of them, the biggest complaints, again, I know it's got the industrial applications. That gives it some strength. That's good for it. So does copper. However, when the economy contracts, it tends to dump silver. And one of the things that I look at, and I know some people are going to argue with this, one of the not weaknesses, but one of the signs that there's just an oversupply and abundance, truly a lot of silver, is just how much there is visual, how much the community has. You can go to a little market in a rural town in Mexico, and every piece of jewelry in there is sterling silver sometimes. You can go to a booth and there's silver everywhere. Necklaces, crosses, crucifixes, rings, silver, silver, silver. Everyone's got silver. They used to make flatware out of it. They used to make forks and knives, and silver was all over the place. Lots of silver. Heck of a lot of silver. I mean, you look at even just some of the bars, the 1,000-ounce bars. I've looked at images of the vaults where you've got some silver stockpiles in different places, and there's a significant quantity. But then look at the YouTube community. How much silver's out there. Look at the size of the silver stacks. Now, don't misinterpret all this, please. I don't want you guys to think I'm, anti-silver. Like I said, I bought some just recently. I do believe it has value. It's just not gold, and it never will be. Case in point, again, they've been mining almost 1 billion tons of silver a year for the past few years. Yes, it's decreased a little bit. They've been shutting mines down. Some would argue that even in the years past, the reason they were slowing some production was because the price was so low and because they had such a supply. And a lot of times, yes, it is a byproduct of finding and getting other metals, copper, gold, and so on. Now, again, a lot of supply was coming out, was being produced. Now, I don't know if it's because the people that hold gold stacks that are pretty big are just afraid to show it. I just don't think they have it. I don't think there's very large gold stacks out there because of the value and because of the scarcity of it. But there is a superb amount of incredible and large silver stacks visual on YouTube and other places. And I'm not saying this is like key evidence in the price discovery mechanism for silver, and this is why it's so prevalent. I'm just saying there is a lot of silver out there. You don't see guys with stacks of 6,000 ounces on their table of silver. Now, I love Silver Slacker's video of his 6,000 ounces. I want some of those bars. I love the Engelhard bars he's got. He's got some incredible key pieces of silver in that video. He's got a heck of a lot of silver. He really does. I actually had to do a calculation when I watched that video, and it was I converted it for him. The 6,000 ounces at 40 to 1, he could consolidate all of that into about 150 ounces of gold if he wanted to at some point when the price reaches that 40 to 1. And it would take up a heck of a lot more space, be a lot smaller, lighter, and easier to move around. But if you're listening, Silver Slacker, I'm not telling you what to do. But if it does get to that point of a 40 to 1 exchange ratio again for silver and gold, maybe do half of it or all of it. I can tell you one thing, I am. When it's 40 to 1 again, all my silver's gone except for some key pieces that I'll keep. But most of the investment grade stuff's, out of here and getting converted back into gold. Again, point here, big silver stacks, lots and lots and lots of ounces, 2,300 ounces there you see at the bottom. And then taking a look at gold stacks online, first off, there's not very many large gold stacks featured anywhere that I've found or seen. You got a couple out there, 28 ounces here. You got 6.63 pounds of RW stacks, about 96 troy ounces of gold, full stack, beautiful stack there, just an incredible amount of gold. Now, I know this video generates quite a bit of rumor and controversy sometimes, and people thinking that it's my stack, and it's not. I wish that it was. This was a friend of mine, a very close dear friend who trusted me to make this video and just demonstrate the power of saving and doing things right. And this was his stack prior. This is actually prior to him purchasing a home cash. A lot of the stack did go towards purchasing a home. He doesn't have this big of a stack that I know of. He's not, he doesn't disclose all of his information. I know he still has metal. He's still a stacker, but he doesn't have, I believe, this amount. Now, this video that I did years ago really was, and it might still be, one of the biggest stack videos that there has been that I've seen. Anyway, it was 200 ounces of gold and about 500 ounces of silver. Again, point being, if 200 ounces is really the most, or 96 ounces the most amount of gold you're going to see in a stack video compared to these guys that have 6,000 or 10,000 ounces of silver, it just shows you silver is a very prevalent metal. And it's just not as, in my opinion, it's not as rare. It doesn't keep me from buying it. It doesn't change the fact that I love the history of it. 7,000, 10,000 years of humans using it. And that it has been money and is money right alongside gold. It's just not the same. And you can't say that they're the same. And I believe that if you can, and you have the opportunity and the ability to purchase gold, you should do so. And if you can't, then you buy silver. And when you can, you buy gold with it. But that's, again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just some idiot that runs a YouTube channel. Now, the boss Paladin Stacker, a good friend of the channel, he sent me this article today, some links to it, as well as some of the slides you saw regarding silver, because he and I discuss silver quite a bit. He friendly refers to it as the super copper. But India is launching a sovereign gold bond scheme, some are calling it, and they're going to be issuing sovereign gold bonds with an interest rate of 2.5%. Now, this is, again, India is a big country, a lot of people, and they're very into gold. We talked about just recently, just a few minutes ago, the situation where they purchased 220 tons of gold at around the $1,150 range, and that's really put the floor for me on gold. And this is something, again, you just don't see happening as much with silver. The amount of government, as much as I dislike using them as an example, central banks, governments, big financial institutions, it is a testament to gold, however. As much as states squabble over it and seek it, it is a proof of its value. I mean, don't believe for 1 minute what Bernanke says in the beginning of my videos, that they just hold it out of tradition. He's saying that to throw people off. We know that's not the case. Nobody holds 19% of a world's commodity in vaults out of tradition, especially the values that it's at. No, they hold it because they know what it truly means and what it represents. And gold is real money. It is sound money. It is the ultimate extinguisher of debt. So think of that for a moment. We looked at the debt. We know what the debt is. The only thing that can extinguish that is a revaluation of gold. So there you have it. Now, again, I know some of you are upset because we kind of talked, we were kind of rude tonight to our little crippled friend, silver. That doesn't mean I don't like it. I love a nice poured loaf of silver bar. I like my ingots, and I like my silver eagles. Beautiful coins. I love the crowns, the pound sterling, having 4 crown sitting there and just being able to reminisce of the history and what they represent, the story they tell. But again, silver is money. It is. And now, whether or not we're going to ever see a day where there's true price discovery and what we can figure out what it really is and the free market is unleashed, or we can use it again in an exchange or have currencies tied to it as they should be. Gold and silver have a standard with some kind of a ratio that's determined by the free market itself, not by government edict, because I don't believe in a 15 to 1 or a 16 to 1 or any type of ratio that is mandated, because we've seen what that caused even in the 19th century in the United States. That causes problems when you do that, and it can change the flow of metals on the planet, because different governments will value them differently, and there will be different exchange rates for silver and gold, and you'll see problems and disruptions in those markets because of that. So you just got to let the free market do its work when it comes to the valuation of metals and how they're exchanged, and see how it turns out. But again, we've come a long ways in just today's rambling video. Again, we looked at a lot of information. You saw the unemployment numbers. You saw the predictions from major institutions and governments alike talking about what we could be facing and where this could all be leading. And all we know is it's looking bleak. It's not looking good. There's a lot of money raining down. The checks are already hitting people now. The stimulus money's out there. It's going to percolate through the economy, and there's more supposedly along the way. All of this will result ultimately in the strength of all of the fiat we see, all the currencies out there losing their purchasing power. And ultimately, metals are going to rally even harder. Again, it's a multi-decade bull run for gold. And silver will hopefully pick up its legs and start following in pursuit and breach 18, breach 20. If it can get into the 30s, that's great. If it can double from here, it'll be doing good. Chances are gold will continue to outperform silver, in my opinion. So that's just my opinion. You can take it for what it's worth. Again, buy what you can, keep stacking. Thanks for tuning in and being part of this channel. Have a good night.